What's up guys, how you doing? Welcome to another video. So today we're talking about camera options. Now one of the questions I get asked all the time is, Rob, I've currently got this camera, I'm thinking of buying this camera next, what do you think? Well, you know what, sometimes I have to ask myself that question, and so today I'm going to try and answer that for you, share with you what my plans are, the reasons why, and hopefully that will help you also answer that question for yourselves when you are looking at cameras. Before we get into all of that, I'm going to ask you guys to do all the usual stuff for me. Make sure you hit the like button on the video. It helps me out loads and loads. In all honesty, it helps my video to be more successful. That's why I ask you to do it. Thank you very much if you do. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And hey, why not share this video to more people? Because this is one of those topics that I think a lot of people find interesting. So if you fancy it, share the video to someone else. Let's go. So first of all, let's start off with where I am right now. I have three cameras that I use. My two main cameras are my Canon R6, which actually I'm shooting on right now. I then have my Canon 1DX as a Mark I, and those are the two cameras that I use for the majority of my stuff. All of my professional work I use two cameras, and I always have a backup with me just in case, and for me, my backup is my 7D Mark II. It's not just a backup, sometimes I use this for like a remote camera and stuff like that whilst I'm using the other two cameras normally on me. So that's my current setup, the R6, a full frame mirrorless camera, the 1DX, a full frame DSLR camera, and the 7D Mark II. This is a crop censored DSLR camera. So I've gone for the full range there. We've got full frame mirrorless, full frame DSLR, and crop sensor DSLR. That's where I am right now. So what do I consider my options to be? Well, I think in simple terms, my options really are going to be to continue with the Canon R6. And by continue with the R6, I mean buy a second R6 in place of my 1DX, so that then I can have two of the same camera, two Canon R6s, and then my 1DX would become my backup. And unfortunately for me, I'd be a bit sad, but that would kind of knock the 7D2 out of my lineup. That one would probably then end up on eBay. So that would be option one. Option two would be to think, okay, fine, I've had my fun dabbling in the mirrorless market with the R6. Maybe it's time to take advantage of the fact that the DSLRs are becoming a bit cheaper. I could sell my R6 and then get something like two 1DX Mark IIs or even Mark IIIs. But probably if I was going to do the DSLR route, I probably would do 1DX Mark IIs because then my advantage becomes the fact that the prices are reduced and it saves me money. I think my next option would be to look at a camera that's not even out yet, but it seems pretty likely that it's coming this year, and that would be the Canon R7. Very likely to be a crop-censored mirrorless camera. I've made several videos about the upcoming R7. I'll link one of them right here if you do want to check that out, then come back to this video. But then I think my likely plan would be to run something like an R7 alongside my R6, two mirrorless cameras, very similar in terms of how they operate, and then that would probably mean that my 1DX becomes my backup camera, with of course the R7 very much replacing my 7D Mark II and then becoming my main second camera. Now, of course, there is the secret fourth option, which would just be to upgrade all of my gear, get hold of two Canon R3s, or maybe even two Canon R1s, which we think are probably coming this year in 2022. But straight off the bat, I'm going to tell you that the R3, R1 options are not in my likely options of what I'm going to do, purely because of budget. Can't afford those right now, not realistic, and I don't believe that right now the extra money you have to spend to get hold of something like an R3 gives you enough advantage compared to something like the R6 for that upgrade in money to be worth it for the upgrade in gear. Don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely believing that the R3 is a better camera. It looks fantastic from everything I've seen. I do hope to get one here on the channel real soon that we can compare with the R6. But for now, it's out of my budget, out of my market, and so that is not going to be in my options. So for the sake of this video, I've got three options. It's going to be to buy two Canon 1DX Mark IIs and move fully back to DSLR for now, take advantage of the fact that I get the most for my money. I'm still using EF lenses, and of course they work flawlessly with something like a 1DX Mark II. Option number two is going to be to get hold of a second Canon R6, so I'm running two R6s, and my third option will be to wait, get the new R7 when it comes out, and run the R7 alongside my R6. Those are the three options. Right, let's look at the detail of each one. Okay, so I'm going to go back to front. I'm going to talk about the options I've decided not to do, and I'm going to tell you why I've decided not to do them, with, of course, the last option being my likely plan and where I see my next move in photography camera gear being. Option number one that I'm not going to take, and this one might not surprise people, but I am not going to get hold of the 1DX Mark IIs. Why, you might ask? 1DX Mark IIs are fantastic cameras, you get loads for your money. Yes, you're absolutely right, but I do believe now that the future of photography is going to be mirrorless cameras, and I've already started to make the move in that direction. Of course, I've got the Canon R6. Canon have pretty much confirmed that the 1DX Mark III will be their last DSLR camera. And so for me, if I've already started making the journey towards mirrorless, then I might as well carry on down that road. It seems a bit silly to me and a bit contradictory to now step backwards when there are so many things I love about the R6 and I love about the mirrorless camera. It seems a little bit counterintuitive to me to then go backwards. I'm gonna keep moving forward towards the mirrorless cameras. Okay, so that brings us into the next option, the Canon R6. I'm really getting on well with it. I'm loving it. I did a video a little while ago about my kind of experience after 6 months. And spoiler alert, I've got a video coming soon where I talk about using it for a year and my experience so far. So it kind of feels like common sense to buy a second Canon R6 to replace my 1DX. Now that option is very tempting because it would give me two of the same camera body. Two camera bodies that work exactly the same way. I can switch from one to the other without any change or buttons being in different places. Both of them using the electronic viewfinder, because that does throw me off quite a bit right now. I'll go from the R6 into the 1DX and of course everything looks darker because I'm seeing a real picture instead of the electronic viewfinder. And that throws me off. I think, oh, did I turn it off? And then, of course, my brain clicks in and realises, no, that's just how it looks. And I go back to it. But that does throw me off sometimes. So having two cameras that work exactly the same way with the same viewfinder would certainly be useful. But you might be surprised to hear I'm not going to take that option. What I'm going to do, and I appreciate this one's a gamble because we're talking about a camera that does not even exist yet. But my plan is going to be to wait for the release of the potential, and I say potential, pretty much going to happen, upcoming Canon R7. So why would I do that? Well, a lot of that is answered in another video that I made. I will link it right here. I talked about why I think the R7 could be a professional camera body. And I really do see something like that fitting into my lineup really well. Right now, my setup is normally that I go for my R6 on my longer 400mm lens, and I have my 1DX on my 70-200. Now, if I was to have the R7, of course that is a crop sensor camera, I could use that on my long lens, on my 400mm. Now, the extra reach that you get from a crop sensor, yes, I know in theory is theoretical, but nonetheless it's there. So that could potentially give me the option of using the R7 alongside a 300mm lens. Now my 400mm lens is one of the much older models, and at some point I'd need to upgrade that. And upgrading that to one of the newer 300mm lenses would make my upgrade of lens much more affordable, and in fact would save me some money. That saving money can go towards funding the Canon R7, which means I'm not having a huge outlay, because of course selling a Canon 1DX and selling a 7D Mark II is only going to get me a few £100s. So that's where something like the R7 and the crop sensor becomes really intriguing. Another big part of this is the lenses. Now, I use EF lenses with the adapters right now on the R6, and they do work flawlessly. All the lenses that I use, and just to clarify, that's my old 400mm IS Mark I, it's my 70-200 IS again Mark I, it's my 24-70 f2.8, that one's the Mark II, and I also use my old 17-40 f4, and all of those work flawlessly with the adapter. They really are good. But nonetheless, with my journey with photography, I will now, when I upgrade lenses, try to move towards the RF mount versions of those lenses. My likely next purchase will be the RF 70-200 because my 70-200 is getting a little bit long in the tooth now. So I could then see a place where I have the new RF 70-200 f2.8 on my Canon R6. I definitely would have to get the battery grip by then because a lot of you guys know I don't have the battery grip, and the battery grip is so important for sports, especially basketball, because you're shooting portrait all the time, and I do find it awkward when I'm using the R6 when I'm having to shoot like over the top like this, and so I will have to get the battery grip for that. But then I could have the R7 on the longer lens, and I can imagine that that pairing would work really, really well. I think for me, that would give me the best balance of really good gear, something that's a bit more affordable without having to break the bank, but still moving forwards positively along my journey towards mirrorless photography. I know loads of people will be telling me, oh, but I love DSLRs, they're still so good, I'm sticking with DSLRs, and yes they are, they really are fantastic. But I do now believe that mirrorless photography is better. I say better hesitantly, but I do think it's better, and in fact I've got another video coming soon about why I think it's better. So there you go, guys, that's my options, that's my reasons, and that's what I intend on doing. Let me know, do you think I'm crazy? Let me know in the comments below. Maybe you're in a similar kind of situation. What are you going to do? I'll be really interested, especially if you're using similar cameras to me right now. What's your plan? What do you think you'll do next? Let me know in the comments below. In the meantime, I think that just about rounds us off. Make sure you hit that like button if you haven't already. Make sure you subscribe. Guys, thank you very much for watching. I will see you on the next video.